So I was asked to give class today and was told that we're going to speak today on Sunday on the Caitanya-caritamrita. So I selected a verse from there. Actually, two verses on the board. Adi-lila, very famous verses, very important verses. Adi-lila 21-22, and then I'm going to read through 23. Namo Vishnu Bharaya Krishna Stampuladeshu Mati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravanga Chayani Nirvasesha Shinavakpastata. So there's two verses here, so maybe we can I'll read each one time, and then you can read one, and then 1-2 line, and then the others can read, so we won't spend too long reciting the verses. Śrī Pañca-tattva mili pṛthivī āsiyā. pūrva-premabhāṇḍārera mudrā ughāḍiyā. pāṅce mili luṭe prema kare āsvādana. yata piye tṛṣṇā bāḍhe anukṣaṇa. Bolo. So one person do 2 lines, the next person do the next 2 lines. Ladies? Translation. The characteristics of Kṛṣṇa are understood to be a storehouse of transcendental love. Although that storehouse of love certainly came with Kṛṣṇa when he was present, it was sealed. But when Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu came with his associates of the Pañca-tattva, they broke the seal and plundered the storehouse to taste transcendental love of Kṛṣṇa. The more they tasted it, the more their thirst for it grew. Let's say it together because it's so beautiful. I'll say, you say. The characteristics of Kṛṣṇa are understood to be a storehouse of transcendental love. Although that storehouse of love certainly came with Kṛṣṇa when he was present, it was sealed. But when Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu came with his associates of the Pañca-tattva, they broke the seal and plundered the storehouse to taste transcendental love of Kṛṣṇa. The more they tasted it, the more their thirst for it grew. Purport by His Divine Grace Śrīla Prabhupada Ki Jai. Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu is called the Mahavandanya Avatar because although he is Sri Krishna himself, he is even more favorably disposed to the fallen souls. Jai Shri Shivonitai. He is even more favorably disposed to the fallen souls than Lord Sri Krishna. When Lord Sri Krishna himself was personally present, he demanded that everyone surrender unto him and promised that he would then give one all protection. But when Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu came to this earth with his associates, he simply distributed transcendental love of God without discrimination. Sri Rupa Goswami therefore can understand that Lord Chaitanya was none other than Sri Krishna himself, for no one but the Supreme Personality of Godhead can distribute confidential love of the Supreme Person. And as sweet as that verse is, I'm going to read two more. Next verse, translation. Śrī Pañca-tattva themselves danced again and again, and thus made it easier to drink nectarean love of Godhead. They danced, cried, laughed, and chanted like madmen, and in this way they distributed love of Godhead. I won't read this purport, but I'll read the next verse and purport. This is text 23. In distributing love of Godhead, Caitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates did not consider who was a fit and who was not fit candidate. Did not consider who was a fit candidate and who was not, nor where such distribution should or should not take place. They made no conditions. Whenever they got the opportunity, the members of the Pañca-tattva distributed love of Godhead. Purport by His Divine Grace Śrīla Prabhupada. There are some rascals who dare to speak against the mission of Lord Chaitanya by criticizing the Krishna consciousness movement for accepting Europeans and, I'll add, even Americans as brahmanas and offering them sannyas. Where's our sannyasi? He's not here. Okay, too bad. Prabhupada's talking about him. But here is an authoritative statement that in distributing love of Godhead, one should not consider whether the recipients are Europeans, Americans, Hindus, Muslims, etc. Repeat that. One should not consider whether the recipients are Europeans, Americans, Hindus, Muslims, etc. The Krishna consciousness movement should be spread wherever possible, and one should accept those who thus become Vaishnavas as being greater than Brahmanas, Hindus, or Indians. Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu desired that his name be spread in each and every town and village on the surface of the globe. Therefore, when the cult of Caitanya Mahāprabhu is spread all over the world, should those who embrace it not be accepted as Vaishnavas, Brahmanas, and Sannyasis? These foolish arguments are sometimes raised by envious rascals, but Krishna-conscious devotees do not care about them. We strictly follow the principles set down by the Pañca-tattva. Jai Śrīla Prabhupada Ki Jai. So first I want to thank our hosts for this ISKCON Communications Conference, His Grace Guru Charan Prabhu and Her Grace Anuradha for hosting us, and all the devotees of Prabhupada Desh. We're all just enjoying in the tent. Our Sangha in the background, you see devotees running here and there, down to the kitchen, up from the kitchen, and we know a lot of work goes into having a festival, a lot of planning. We just eat Parmesan, but somebody sat down and decided how many pieces of Parmesan, how many trays of Parmesan. I know, I was at the end of the line. I was thinking this line is too long. And just before I came up, someone came up with another tray. I thought, Hare Krishna. This is good management. It's very nice. So thanks to all the devotees. And thank you for all the devotees coming here, for participating in the conference, and for all the service that you do and your efforts to try to spread Lord Chaitanya's movement all around the world. We know that actually it's not easy. You know, sometimes we realize, and Prabhupada even said years ago, of course, he said, we shouldn't be surprised who leaves Krishna consciousness, we should be surprised who stays. So every year when we come together, we should really appreciate the fact that, devotees are staying 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. Now some devotees 60 years as devotees in the Krishna conscious movement. So there's so many obstacles. There's the body makes trouble, the mind makes so much problems for us. Sometimes our family members, sometimes our friends, sometimes financial obstacles. Our services itself. I know some of the devotees here, they've taken on, in recent years especially, management responsibilities. One time, a few years ago, they were simple, happy brahmacharis. Now they're the chairman of the European RGB, taking on so many headaches for Krishna. This is glorious. This is very glorious. So, all of you still here. And of course, we even know sometimes people, they come and they go, and then they come back again. Our movement's been around long enough. We see the circle, isn't it? You come as a bhakta, then you become initiated devotee, then you do some seva, you get some responsibility. Sometimes even become GBC, even become a guru. Even then you can fall away. We give you a little bit of time, you come back again. Start washing pots. Work your way up. So Krishna's so kind, so wonderful. So thanks to all of you, because it is a fact, without the devotees, none of us could go on. We should all remember that. Without the Sangha, there's no way we would be able to maintain our Krishna consciousness. So as I mentioned, I was asked to choose whatever verse I chose. I remember these verses. They're quoted. There was a book, I don't know if it's around so much these days, but it was called Preaching is the Essence. It was a compilation of many Prabhupada's quotes about spreading Krishna consciousness. These verses were there, very important, and I remember as a pretty new devotee, they made a deep impression on me. So they're quoted in Preaching is the Essence, but in a sense these verses are the essence of the Krishna consciousness movement, because they are establishing the ethos, the culture, the vision, really the foundation of our society. We know here, especially this, being here in Prabhupada Desh in Italy. Of course, Prabhupada said Italy is like the India of Europe, right? It's so religious, it's in the south, it sticks out into the water like that. So it's a special place, but at the same time, Prabhupada had this vision and this deep conviction. So he went to New York, and from there he went around the world and went back to India and spread Krishna consciousness. He himself went to Russia. He sent disciples to China. He really had this conviction, as told in the Shastra, that this movement should go all around the world. And others didn't have so much that conviction. Or even if they tried, they weren't very successful. Some of Prabhupada's godbrothers, they went to England, they went to Germany, they met some royalty, and they went home and basically said, you can't make these people devotees. But Prabhupada had deep conviction that actually this is the prediction of the scripture. It's not just some poetry, but actually it's the fact. So because of his conviction, because of his vision, because of his compassion, we're all here. We wouldn't be here if he didn't have faith in exactly what these verses say and what he expands in the purport, that only foolish people, rascals, would say the devotees, the people that become devotees, to say that they're not full devotees because of some bodily concept of life, he's rejecting that. And because of that, today there's so many brahmanas, there's sannyasis. He's come now, Jai. Prabhupada's talking about you, Maharaj, in the verse today, in his purports. A few others too, but he didn't mention you by name, but we know he had you in mind. We know. So I just thought, I'll highlight a few points from this section. So first of all, that Krishna is God in this first verse. Krishna is God, he's a person, as Urmila was discussing yesterday, and he's all attractive. The Supreme, there's many different ideas of the Supreme. And whether God is a person, we just went another part of the world where they say God is the Supreme, but you can't have any images of him. In fact, some will say if you try to have an image of God, we should cover that. It's an offense to try to have an image of God. We can't conceive of God. Some say God has no form, God has no personality, there's just oneness of energy. So we know in our Vaishnava tradition that God, the Supreme, the Absolute Truth, is actually a person, but he's not only a person who, again, as some traditions, famously illustrated by great artists, he's an angry God who somehow puts life into the world. That's not our vision. Is here. He's playing his flute with his associates. And as we heard this morning, he's stealing butter and saying, I take an oath, I did not do that. But everyone's laughing. Wasn't it described, Rukmini read it? It was in the section on laughing, right? Their rasa was laughing. So he's stealing, and their love is increasing and laughing about what is such an amazing. So this is our concept of the Supreme, the ultimate truth. It's not a spot. It's not an explosion. It's not a principle. It's not a sound. It's a person. He is a person, and that he's the storehouse of love of God. And we understand that everyone is actually looking for him. I was looking out the window today. There's a bird hopping from place to place looking for whatever it eats. And I was thinking, actually, he's looking for Kṛṣṇa. He's thinking he's looking for worms, or he's looking for bugs, or he's looking for seeds. But no, actually, we can't tell him. He's getting benefit from the kirtan. But he's not aware of understanding. You're actually looking for Kṛṣṇa. And this is a fact. This is our philosophy. Everyone is looking for Kṛṣṇa, but unfortunately they're cheated again and again and again. Again and again and again and again and again. As we flew here from the States, I don't watch movies, but I have a hard time not watching when everyone else is watching. So there's some remake. It was on Broadway, and I guess now they made it into a movie. When I grew up in America, every year there was only 3-4 TV stations, and every year they played The Wizard of Oz. I speak about this in India, and I quit. Nobody knows what you're talking about. Anybody here know Wizard of Oz? Okay, enough that I can continue my example. Okay, thank you. Thank those of you that don't, but you raised your hand anyway. Thank you. Very kind. So in that story, there's this magical wizard that has all kinds of powers, and everybody's afraid of him, but actually it turns out he's just an old man behind a curtain. And I was thinking, that's Maya. He represents Maya. It looks so beautiful, it looks so wondrous, it looks so magical, but actually it's an old man behind the curtain, just pulling a bunch of knobs, making it look wonderful. So when we see things without Kṛṣṇa, again, as Urmila was describing yesterday, it's magic, it's illusion, it's not really there. But if you remember the story, those of you that remember the story, Dorothy, eventually she goes through all of these adventures and these turmoils and these difficulties and makes friends and challenges and meets vicious witches and blah, blah, blah. The whole point of this story is to what? Help her understand that all along you had the power in your ruby red slippers. Just kick your shoes together. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. And you go home. I don't know if this person knew anything about Krishna conscious philosophy. I don't know the author's name. But it's like an amazing parallel. Because the fact is, we all have within us the ability to just say, I want to go home. But we're too bewildered by the man behind the curtain. So our philosophy is that actually we all have the power. We all have the power. So that's the first point. Krishna is God. He's all attractive. He's all loving. And we have the power to go back to him. Second point from this series of verses, that Krishna is so kind. Again, I was not from a religious family, but still the culture is so much that God is someone to be feared. And, that's there a little bit. It's good you have fear of the policeman. I grew up in the 1970s. We all grew up very afraid of the policeman. Didn't stop what we were doing. But anyway, little fear sometimes can be healthy. But that's not Kṛṣṇa. He comes again and again and again. We're learning about how he comes as Lord Chaitanya in these verses. How Lord Chaitanya comes. That he never abandons us. Again, all these different philosophies, is God a person, not a person, all the way down to, okay, God's a person, but he kind of gives you one shot. Right? It's like there's many parents here. We can just imagine, you tell your child, wash your hands before dinner, and they don't do it, so you stop feeding them. right? Or the teacher says, sit down and listen to the class, but they don't sit down, they run around, so you expel them forever, right? Or isn't it like, who could do that? Who could do that? So we're very blessed by Prabhupada and by our acharyas that revealed to us that actually, Prabhupada describes sometimes, Krishna wants us back more than we can desire. That when we think about who is this person as revealed in the Shastra, that he has so many incarnations. Think first canto, doesn't it say there's more incarnations than waves in the ocean? Yeah. I mean, how's that? Waves in the ocean? Even you go back and you look at a little fountain here when there's wind. I don't know if there's any water in it now, but there's more waves than I can count. Just a little fountain, what to speak in the ocean. So there's so many incarnations. There's so many Shastra, Vedic Shastras and other Shastra, other scriptures. So many deities. Krishna's like Gaura-Nitai's here, and you go a few miles away, he's there and there, and he's manifesting more and more places. So many names of Krishna. So many names of the Supreme. So many different religious traditions are there. So many different devotees, so many different gurus. So Krishna's coming and trying to help us again and again and again and again and again. And he's in our heart, as described in the Upanishad. He's actually in every living entity's heart, waiting just for us to turn towards him. That he never gives up. You know, what kind of personality is that never gives up? You know, we give up. I mean, I've had some friends in my life, they did some strange things, once, twice, 3 times, that's it. I can think of some people now, I had to cut them off. Because their consciousness, I found, was too difficult for me. Krishna never says that. You take the body of a pig, he's still there. So he never gives up on us, and we are eternally related to him. So just like, you know, people, they're looking for comfort, right? You see little kids, they carry their little, like on the airplane again, little kids, they start to cry because their mother realized, oh, she left their doll on the plane. They won't go on the plane without their stuffed rabbit or something like that. They get comfort from that. Or people in the mode of ignorance, you know, they go to the bar, they get comfort from being at the bar and having a drink with some friends. Well, people get comfort from they go to the forest, there's some people more in the mode of goodness, they get some comfort there. But even that is temporary, you know, the wind comes, the season changes, the darkness comes, eventually it's temporary comfort. But knowing that the nature of Kṛṣṇa and who he is as a person, and that he actually is eternally connected with us, never gives up on us, it should give us great comfort. So second point. First one, that Kṛṣṇa is the all-attractive person. Second, that he comes again and again, what kind of person. And then this third point, particularly emphasized in these verses, about how Lord Caitanya comes, Kṛṣṇa comes as Lord Caitanya, manifests his wonderful lila, and he makes the process the most simple and the most open to everyone. I mean, maybe Kṛṣṇa will tell us someday how it is that we're fortunate enough to be here at this time and take up this process and be part of this great movement. Don't necessarily understand that now, but just by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, by chanting God's names, we can actually become purified. And I don't know about everybody else, but sometimes, I mean, I'll be standing in the kirtan or even in front of the deities, my mind just goes to the hellish planets and back again in a split second. And I have no shelter other than the thing, Kṛṣṇa, I can only hear your name. I can only chant your name. I'm too fallen. My mind is too distracted. I'm too sinful. I mean, I have no idea what I did. Even in this lifetime, I've forgotten so many terrible things I did. What to speak of previous lifetimes? But still, he allows me to come here, stand, take prasadam, associate with devotees, read the scripture, hear the holy name. I just have to bathe my soul in his name. There's no other hope. There's one man came to 26 Avenue, was explaining, he was asking a question to Śrīla Prabhupada. He said, but what about my mind? It's so disturbed. Prabhupada said, I have no other medicine. He says, just chant Hare Krishna. So he asked him 3 times, what about my mind? What about my mind? What about my mind? Prabhupada finally very strongly said, just chant Hare Krishna. I have no other medicine. So So we can think like that. This is the medicine. I have to take the medicine. So here in this verse it's pointed out who can take the medicine. Like, I don't think you have this problem in this country. I don't know. In my country, you go to get the medicine, they say, okay, who's your insurance company? Before we give you the medicine, can you afford the medicine? We're not sure. Jai Shisha Goyantai. It's true, they ask. And it's a big, big problem. You know, a lot of medicines are very expensive. Well, if you can't afford the medicine, you don't get the medicine. Even in something as unimportant as, a few $1,000s in medicine. What to speak of the mantra, the process that can awaken our love of God. So, this is the most important point of this verse here. Prabhupada's emphasized in his purport also, that there's no discrimination who's fit and who's an unfit candidate. So this is very, very important for us as devotees. First of all, because it gives us hope. So we can sometimes, when we feel the waves of material consciousness or envy or greed or lust or anger, so many things, we can think, I'm so unqualified. But still, Lord Chaitanya doesn't discriminate. He doesn't slam the door on me. He's opening the door wide by His causeless mercy. So it's important for us as devotees. It gives us hope. It's important for us as preachers, as devotees, committed to trying to share this message, and that we understand there's no discrimination. I remember when I was a new devotee, my full-time service for some time was distributing Prabhupada's books. And you had to really force your mind. No discrimination. Here comes a young person about 3 times more likely to take a book. But your mind says, don't talk to that guy. He's a businessman. They're bad. Yeah, they know, Lord Chaitanya wants me to talk to him. And of course, 9 times out of 10, he wouldn't take a book. And if you were in Chicago, 1 time out of 100, he'd punch you or hit you with his briefcase. But you still had to approach him because you're a servant of Lord Chaitanya. And that's it, that's his mood. So, gives us hope as individuals, gives us a vision as preachers. And because this is a communications conference, I'll emphasize, as communications devotees, this verse gives us the method. It actually gives us our method. Because if the Lord doesn't discriminate who's fit for bhakti, then we have to make sure we can't discriminate either as devotees in any sense, but particularly looking at as communications devotees. And we see today, I was surprised, I talked to somebody, came in, maybe it was Braj Bihari, somebody was talking about how the world's getting, they said, yeah, I met online for a few days. It's like, okay, in 3 days, how much worse has it gotten in the last 3 days? No comment on where I'm living these days at this point, but in 3 days things can get much worse. So we live in a world today, it's full of anger. You see people driving on the road, again, I don't know how it is here in the United States, is you're taking your life in your hands just to drive on the road these days. And I don't know if it's because everybody's playing games with their smartphones and all that, or where you crash and then you just push reset. They don't realize there is a reset, but not in this life. And they're weaving in and out of traffic, and you just think like you got such a valuable life, and you're taking such risk with it. Why? For some little sense of power over your car and over the road. So much anger, so much envy, so much discrimination, so much war, so much exploitation. Even when we landed in Venice, we flew for the United States, spent a couple of days in Istanbul, and then landed in Venice. I was so disappointed because I was thinking, this is like landing in LA. You've polluted the environment here too. You can hardly see through the sky, it's black. And that's not clouds. And why is it? Because we're poisoning the environment. I don't know if many of you know, Kamala Priya is here somewhere. We have this ISKCON environmental initiative, and maybe you know there is a island of plastic floating in the Pacific Ocean. They call it the Great Pacific something. Plastic. It's like an island of plastic.
19.
There's 19. The biggest one's in the Pacific Ocean. And, okay, American concept, it's the size of the state of Texas, which means it's probably pretty close to the size of half of Italy or something. I don't know. It's huge. Plastic. Now, how they've, you know, in the 1950s, plastic was a new thing. It's not like we've been filling the world with plastic for 300 years. It's a new thing. You know, air pollution is a new thing. Water pollution is a new thing. And it's all the product of materialistic exploitation of the planet, because we're thinking we have to squeeze more and more and more and more and more. And in the meanwhile, we're just destroying our planet, destroying ourselves. So this is the state of the world today. And so that's where people are going, knowingly or unknowingly. Of course, many good people are trying to turn that the other way, but many people not. So we have a very different message. You know, there's so much anger, so much envy, so much discrimination. The message of our movement is one of inclusion. I mean, there's wars all over the planet. I use this example a lot. When I was a kid, there was a TV show called Star Trek. And there was one episode I remember, they got some call for help, so they went to some planet, and there were only 2 people left, and they had a line right down the middle of their face. One half was pure white, one half was pure black. And I forget the details, but somehow they tried to get them on board. Braj wasn't there. Maybe if Iskon Resolve had been there, they would have had a different ending of the episode. But as it turned out, they couldn't work it out, and they ended up going back to the planet and fighting. They were the last 2 people. And the whole time, everybody's wondering, why do you hate each other so much? Why do you hate each other? You want to kill each other. What's you the last 2 people of your whole planet, and you just want to kill each other? Can't you change? And then it's revealed at the end. You don't notice this watching the screen. One, they have a perfect line on their face. They're black on this side and white on this side. The other one is white on this side and black on that side, and they hate each other. And they've destroyed their planet. They've killed every other human being or whatever of those races because of this vision. So our vision is completely different. That ours is inclusive. We see every living entity as a part and parcel of Kṛṣṇa. Every living entity is a spirit soul. And that Kṛṣṇa loves everyone. And that everyone who has, especially in the human form of life, has the opportunity to awaken their love of Kṛṣṇa. And the Lord Chaitanya especially, he forgives everyone, whatever nonsense we've done, even today. He's willing to forgive that. He's trying to forgive that. He does forgive that. He's willing to accept us. We just have to turn towards him. What a beautiful message we have. That's our mission. You know, some people, you know, they work for some company, but like, what's your mission? To raise the profits by 0.01% over the next 14 months. Jai. Haribo. That's inspiring. Isn't it? That's their life they give to that. Somebody like, what's their mission? I worked in a factory one summer and got a ride to work every day. I just asked the man, like, what's your goal in life? To get a Harley-Davidson motorcycle. Every day on the way to work, he just talked about Harley-Davidson motorcycles. And I was just 18, so they were pretty cool motorcycles, but there were so many Harley-Davidson motorcycles at the factory, there was 20 or 30, and I knew some of the people that owned Harley-Davidson motorcycles. They were as miserable as he was without one. So what's the point? But people, they're chasing things like that in their mind. They have something, I have to get this, I have to go here, I have to buy that. So our message and our mission is very different. So as followers of Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya, the Pañca-tattva, it's important for us that we develop the same mood. And unfortunately, Prabhupada mentions, he's talking about rascals, right, in this purport. A few purports later, he says, Kanishta adhikaris, or prakrita bhaktas, materialistic devotees who are not advanced in spiritual knowledge, are envious instead of happy, and therefore they try to find faults in the Krishna consciousness movement. So this tendency to find faults, or this tendency to discriminate, or this tendency to say you're not a fit candidate, he's not saying materialistic people. He's saying materialistic devotees make that discrimination. So we have to get rid of that. We may be Kanishta adhikaris, but at least that part of it, we've got to give that up and give that divisive vision away to see he's fit, he's not fit, he's fit, she's not fit, they're not fit. That's materialistic mentality. It's not worthy of a follower of the Pañca-tattva. So in today's world, we see in people, we just had our Vaishnava, 28th annual Vaishnava Christian dialogue. The topic was spiritual but not religious. They did a whole academic analysis, Vaishnava and then Christian scholars presented. One of the reasons was so many people are fed up with religion. They say, I'm spiritual, I have nothing to do with religion because you guys screwed it up. You guys are causing the wars. You guys are causing all the strife in the world. You guys are causing all the discrimination. I don't want anything I just want to be spiritual. And of course, there's a lot of flaws in that. We recognize that for sure. But in this world, a lot of people, they reject religion. They reject religious people, religious organizations, because they tend to fall into this, we're fit, you're not. We're saved, you're not. We're the chosen people, you're not. We have the highest dharma, you don't. I was born in this part of the world, you are not. There's one very nice devotee in Chicago. He's a brahmachari, very high paka brahminical birth in India. And he told me recently, he said, we were talking about his experience. He said, before I came to ISKCON, he said, when I came to ISKCON, we all talk about how you're not the body. He said, it was very refreshing to me because my whole life I was told you are the body because you're high caste. And he told me, he was telling us that he had friends, close friends, if they came to his house and they were thirsty, the mother would go and get a special glass only for those class of people. Take it to the door, you drink the water outside, you don't come in our house, and you don't drink out of a cup that I'm going to drink out of. Now that's the way this perverted bodily concept of life comes out in one culture. We have to look and see, how does it come out in my culture? How does it come out in the ISKCON culture even sometimes? How does it come out in my own heart? Who am I discriminating against? Who am I prejudiced against? So as communications devotees here, and all of us, but speaking to this seminar, we have to really develop this vision of non-discriminating. It's Lord Chaitanya's mood, it's Prabhupada's mood, and train ourselves to see others as devotees and to see how Kṛṣṇa is working in their lives. And sometimes it's so phenomenal. It amazes me. Sometimes devotees seem to think it's like I was totally in Maya, and then I just walked into the temple cold, and I came in touch with Krishna consciousness, and at that point, Paramama woke up in my heart. Like he wasn't leading me. The rabbis that instructed me when I was a kid, the churches I went to that inspired me when I was a child, the atheistic teachers that tried to convince me to be a moral person, that wasn't Krishna talking to me. How can we think like that? Those are Krishna's representatives. He's working through all these different agents. He's working through different religious systems. He's working through different temples. He's in everyone's heart. So, just like Srila Prabhupada, we see when we study his history, Prabhupada was in America still writing to members of the Gaudiya Math, please help, let's cooperate. How can we work together? Prabhupada in the early years, he wrote to the Pope. Now, the Pope, just recently passed away, very pious person, done wonderful things. But from the strict Vaishnava perspective, the four regs, forget it. Maybe one, maybe two. Definitely not the other two. But Prabhupada's writing him saying, let's work together. You are the leader of a great religious tradition. How can we work together to spread God consciousness? And he wrote, I have to go back and read it and memorize it. He said something like, Your Holiness, please accept my obeisances in the dust of your lotus feet. Something like that. Some expression like that. So Prabhupada he tried to work with the Gaudiya Math. He tried to work with the Pope, he worked with governments, he worked with Hindus, he worked with scholars, he worked with religious leaders. In Australia, right, he was asked, who is Jesus? He is our guru. He is guru. But sometimes we think, no, we don't have to do with those guys. He worked with the Beatles. Don't take advantage of that one. But he worked with the Beatles. George Harrison asked him, should I shave up and move in the temple? Prabhupada said, no, you're doing too much service for Kṛṣṇa. You just keep writing songs about Kṛṣṇa. So, in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says you should, first of all, I think verse 8, you should just think of me always. But if you can't do that, practice bhakti. But if you can't do that, work for me. But if you can't do that, give up the fruits of your action. And in that purport, kind of in the same mood as what's being described here, 12:11, Prabhupada writes, he says, it is also found that when one who is not even interested in the activities of Krishna consciousness gives charity to some hospital or some other social institution, he gives up the hard-earned results of his activities. That is also recommended here. They didn't tell me that as I was a new bhakta. We don't talk about that enough. But Prabhupada says that is also recommended here because by the practice of giving up the fruits of one's activities, one is sure to purify his mind gradually. And in that purified stage of mind, one becomes able to understand Krishna consciousness. Of course, Krishna consciousness is not dependent on any other experience because Krishna consciousness itself can purify one's minds. But if there are impediments to accepting Krishna consciousness, one may try to give up the results of his actions. In that respect, social service, community service, national service, sacrifice for one's country, and so forth, may be accepted so that someday one may come to the stage of pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord. So this is a very important thing for us as communications devotees, because sometimes for different reasons, to protect our bhakti lata bija, we don't associate with other people that may distract us. But communications is all about going out, building alliances, building friends. So we should see Lord Chaitanya say, we don't discriminate. It's not that we're devotees and they're not. Srila Prabhupada said, in this world, sometimes we need help. He said, therefore make people sympathizers. Not everybody's going to become a devotee of Krishna, but we can make everyone a sympathizer of Krishna consciousness. So in this way, we should try to fan the spark of Krishna consciousness. We may all remember the story of Jamuna Devi when she first came to her sister's wedding, and Prabhupada engaged her in washing the pot so they could cook. So she was in the bathtub, which is a lesson in itself, washing the pot in the bathtub, because that's all they had. So you do what you can for Krishna. She scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed. She brought it to Prabhupada. Prabhupada, did he say, oh, that's terrible, there's still dirt on the bottom of the pot? No, he said, oh, very nice. But there's a little more here. Please wash a little more better. So she went back and scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed, and came back. Prabhupada said, oh, that's very nice. But there's just this little spot left here. So she went back and scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed. So that's the message. That's the message of our acharyas. That's the message to us. As again, Urmila said yesterday, I never would have joined this movement if I'd known it was, if Prabhupada was sectarian, I wouldn't have joined. That was so beautiful to hear. I think many of us feel the same way. We can't let it become sectarian. It's not sectarian. Lord Chaitanya is saying here, this is not a sectarian movement. We don't discriminate who's fit, who's unfit. Of course, we have, principles, but we gradually help people make some advancement. So our goal, we want to fan the spark of Krishna consciousness. We appreciate that spark wherever we see it in other people's heart. We appreciate the help that others can give us, and we try to not be proud. Because if we're proud, then we can't accept others as friends. We can't accept others as partners. Then we can't learn from others. I mean, communications devotees, because we go out, we know so many good lessons we've learned from people that aren't Vaishnavas. So many good lessons we've learned from people that aren't even religious people at all. We benefit from that association, and we can help them benefit. So we always want to try to remember it's only by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya that I'm a devotee. It's only by the mercy of Śrīla Prabhupada that I'm a devotee. So we want to take that mercy. We want to share that mercy with these three messages. Krishna is the all-attractive Supreme Person. He's especially come at this time as Lord Chaitanya to share without discrimination this message of Krishna consciousness. And for ourselves, that we should try to avoid any discrimination in our hearts, so we can actually share the message in the mood of Lord Chaitanya as described in this verse. And Mahaprabhu, I finished with 30 seconds to go. I can take one question. Just see how merciful the Vaishnavas are. One question? Yes. Well, the hand is here, the mic is here, this is Krishna's arrangement. Yes.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much for an inspiring class. In the beginning, in the purport to this verse, Śrīla Prabhupada is mentioning spreading of the cult of Caitanya Mahāprabhu. My question is, now in today's perspective, knowing the world, especially in the Western Europe, where there are so many anti-cult activities and initiatives, how such a sentence affected. So how do we of course as devotees know that we are not sect, that we are not cult, that we are a very inclusive spiritual movement, but how to deal with anti-cult people when they come to you and say, this is what your guru is saying, that this is a cult.
So if they point to this, you point to a dictionary and explain to them that before you people, this word's been around for a long time. And this word has a use different than your use. Okay, so let's not point to this word. Because he wrote these books in was published in 75, the CC? So he wrote pre-75. The whole anti-cult, anti-sect, that whole thing didn't even exist. It was just starting. So if you want to be a little scholarly, my dear friend, and point to our books, we're going to point to your books, like the dictionary, and see that there's another meaning, which is a devotional. It's described in so many places. At the same time, we don't use those words because there's no point. It's got a negative connotation, so we don't use those words. And at the same time, we talk to those people, so you don't like some things we're doing, tell us what you don't like, and we'll fix it. You criticize us, thank you. Give us a chance to fix it. Don't hold us in the past. We don't hold you in the past. I had dinner once, I'll end with this story. Rukmini was with me and a devotee friend, Haridas from Washington, D.C. We had a meeting with the heads of the International Cultic Studies Association. We went to dinner in a nice vegetarian restaurant, which sometimes you need to do when you do communications work, because you need to cultivate people. So, the first question they asked me, this was 1996. I was shocked how little they knew about us, although they criticized us like crazy. And they said, how's Kirtanananda? And I cleared my throat. I felt my face turn red. And I said, well, actually, he left our movement 10 years ago. We expelled him. We expelled him because he did some illegal things that we didn't agree with. We took a strong stand. We expelled him from our society. He actually went to jail. And he has nothing to do with us. And they said, we didn't know that. That's so good to learn. There was a moment of silence. And very innocently I said, how's Ted Patrick doing? Those of you that don't know, he's like the most famous of the deprogrammers, okay? So the man, he cleared his throat. This is a true story. I'm not exaggerating one bit. His face turned a little red. And he said, actually, he's not a member of our organization anymore. He did a lot of things we don't agree with. He went to jail. He doesn't represent us. And I said, oh, that's very nice to know. And then we could talk. Okay? We've had some bad people. You've had some people that went bad. I don't want to say bad people. You've had some people. Even Ted Patrick. Probably his motivations were good, but he got in, So let's talk. We're human beings. We're struggling with the world. We're struggling with so many temptations, so many problems. Let's talk about how our organization can become better, how your organization can become better, the world can be lifted up. This is the mood of Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu. And like they say, that's our story, and we're not changing. Okay? Jai.
Thank you.
Jai. Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai.